All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this webinar. And well, this is just the introduction to the idea. It's more like a 1 week challenge. But before I go into the 1 week challenge, I will just kind of share some of my thoughts with you. So today's webinar is like a very short one. It's probably just 20 minutes long. It's not going to take too much of your time. So the first thing that I want to start with is a very simple concept on the classification of thoughts. And what I have done today is like just to give you a, like you can kind of think of thoughts, I mean, in a very simple way where you can classify them into either positive, negative, pleasant, unpleasant, however you want. Because if you observe the nature of your mind and you see that from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, your mind is mostly active all the time. It just keeps bringing up all kinds of conversation within your own head, right? And for a lot of people, quite a lot of this mental chatter, I mean, like eventually does kind of end up falling into the unpleasant category, right? Now, of course, it's a spectrum. Like when I say negative or unpleasant, like for example, being mildly bored is also unpleasant, but being suicidally depressed is also unpleasant, right? Like being suicidally depressed would be like the extreme end of the unpleasant segment, and being mildly bored would be like just the beginning of like the unpleasantness. Like as I said, it's a spectrum, right? Now likewise on the positive or the pleasant side of things, also it's a spectrum where on the beginning end of the spectrum, what we have is feeling pleasant, or having a nice smile, or feeling good, enjoying the breeze, having a nice beautiful day, or having like full blown ecstasy would be like the extreme end of the spectrum, right? But still it's a spectrum. But for today's discussion, like the way I've thought about it is like, let's just simply classify it into two sides, right? Now the thing is, I'm sure all of you are able to identify these things within yourself. And if we are just simply honest with ourselves and if we don't deceive ourselves, what we can notice is that as soon as we are on the pleasant side of things, there is a feeling inside your body where like you feel in a certain way, like you enjoy that feeling. Your mind is generating thoughts which are quite enjoyable to you. On the other hand, when we're on the unpleasant side of things, like there is a feeling inside the body, it's a physical sensation which does not really feel very good. And like no one else can tell you this, only you can view it and see it for yourself. And on the unpleasant side of things, of course, like along with this not feeling so good in your body, also the nature of thoughts which are being generated in your mind are not the most pleasant thoughts, right? And they kind of tend to diminish the quality of your life, right? So having given you this basic framework of how we can classify our thoughts, we move to the next idea which I want to discuss with you, is that uh, by virtue of having thoughts and being human beings, unlike maybe other creatures on the planet who don't operate like us, we also have the capacity to manifest our reality, right? How many of you would sort of like agree with this, or is there anyone who disagrees with this? I mean, I would like to know your thoughts as well. Like, is there everyone in this conversation who is like, yes, we manifest our reality, or is there anyone who thinks like, no, I disagree with that? We live in this cold mechanical universe. Everything is a function of probability and chance. So I would just like to know, where do you people lie on this thought process?
Completely agreed.
All right. Kartika says completely agree. Radhini, you were saying something?
I said a little bit of both.
A little bit of both, for sure. Okay, cool. I think Yelena wants to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say that yes, I also agree that we can create our own reality if we're conscious of it. If we're just going day by day doing actions, behaviors that are unconscious, then we're not really in control of what we what we're creating in our lives. Like we just basically become like programmed robots, so to speak, and we just follow whatever other people follow. We do what society does, we do what our friends do, and we don't take the time to actually listen to our souls. What do we want to do in this life? What do we want to create? And then we just, you become programmed by society, and we just kind of like become like robots, and we don't listen to our hearts or our souls. So then that becomes, then our actions and our behavior becomes unconscious. But when we become aware, of who we are, who we want to be, then we become conscious of it, and then we can then start to create the life that we want. Yes, if that makes sense.
Yes. Wow. Thank you. So basically, everyone agrees that at least in some capacity or the other, our thoughts are creating at least some aspect of our reality, right? So the way I would think about it, like even if we are unconscious of our thoughts, they still create our reality, even if they are being programmed by society, because the nature of the mind is such that it is almost always just active. It is generating like all these sequence of thoughts. It could be about anything. I mean, about your co-workers, about office, about like the people in your life, about relationships. But either ways, the mind is active. And what happens is, whether you believe it does it 100%, or even if it does it to some capacity, if we can all agree that the quality of our thoughts have an impact on the life that we experience. By that, what I mean is what we consider to be the external world, right? Which is who are the people who are coming into our life, right? What are the kind of events and situations which are manifesting in our life? So if we can agree that there is some capacity of influence, that what we consider to be our internal headspace has an effect on what we consider to be external reality, right? Then it becomes important to understand what is the quality of the thoughts that we're having. Because if manifestation is a thing, and if we have like really low quality thoughts where, there is always focus on unpleasantness, unsatisfaction or dissatisfaction, or always a focus on what is wrong, or this person said this to me, how do we look at the world basically has a huge impact on how we experience the world, right? So which is where gratitude comes in, and which is where comes in our whole discussion for today, and the challenge that I have for you guys for this week. Now, what gratitude does for you basically is, first thing, it keeps you in a pleasant state of mind, which is something that has like multiple benefits. Now, if I talk about the most immediate benefit of that, which is if you think about how we experience the world, you experience the world from your inner headspace. What do I mean by that? Now, it does not matter if you're sitting inside Audi or a Ferrari or whatever. Like, if your internal headspace is messed up, you're going to have a messed up experience. Like, I mean, imagine if you're like the CEO of Goldman Sachs, and then, it's like your girlfriend is like cheating on you, and you just found out, and then, like your shareholders are like taking your trip, and then you're going back home, which you have a $10 million home, and you're going in your, I don't know, Rolls Royce or something like that. But if those things are happening, and if you're in a negative internal headspace, you're going to have an unpleasant time. And it wouldn't really matter if your home costs $11 million and if your car costs like, I don't know, $500,000 or something like that, you're still going to have a bad time, right? And what gratitude can do for you, irrespective of who you are and where you are in life, it can immediately switch the quality of your internal headspace, which is that it can take you from being in an unpleasant headspace, which is that irrespective of however things are in your life, if you're having a bad time, gratitude can instantaneously shift that to you having a good time, at least internally, whatever may be happening, whether you consider, the external world to be good or bad. Now, what gratitude is basically doing is, in a moment in time, it basically is a question of what do I choose to focus on and what is the narrative that I give it, right? Because there are always, at any given moment in time, there are thousands of things that we can focus on. And because that's the nature of the mind, it is always active. Now, we need to understand that there is a choice that is being made. Now, this choice is made based on the kind of existing programs that our mind has already incorporated. Now, these programs that our mind runs on is a function of all the experiences that we've had in our life since our birth, right? Like you were a kid in a certain family, and then you had parents who grew up in a certain way, and you had relationships and people hurt you, and then you felt good about certain things. And now all of these things cumulatively made you, right? But this you that you call yourself is nothing but an accumulation of these mental programs, which basically picks up all of this information from a given moment in time in reality, and then presents a story to you of what is currently going on, right? Now, if the story that you present to yourself is a story of dissatisfaction, unpleasantness, complaining, right? What happens is, then constantly, irrespective of how materially rich or good our life is, the quality of our life is going to diminish and we're going to have a bad time. But the best part is that we can always work with what we have and upgrade what we have, right? So which is where gratitude is a really amazing tool which can pretty much instantaneously shift the quality of your internal headspace and then make your reality more pleasant. That is the first benefit of gratitude, which is pretty much instantaneous. Now, the next thing is where I asked you in the next previous slide that how many of you think about the process of manifestation? Do you agree, disagree? Since you all agreed either 100% or at least to some degree, right? Now, if you agree that even if like 10% of your life is a function of manifestation, right? Even if you agree that much, what you will realize is that that 10% as well, whether it's 10% or 100%, it doesn't really matter. Whatever percentage it may be, if the quality of your thoughts is one of always complaining, nagging, dissatisfaction, unpleasantness, what you're going to manifest in your life is basically more things to be dissatisfied about, more things to complain about, more things to be unhappy about. But on the other hand, if you are able to switch it in the given moment, where you are able to focus on pleasant thoughts and things that you already have, which you're quite happy about, what you're going to manifest in that 10% or 100% or anything in between is basically more things that you can be happy about, more things that you can be grateful for, and more things that you can actually enjoy in your life, right? Now, the flip side of that is also true, which is that when you're focusing on things that you can be grateful for, because at a given moment in time, your mind will only have one stream of thought. Like it has the capacity to switch very fast, but right, one second. Yeah, it has the capacity to switch very fast between thoughts, but at any given moment in time, it only focuses on one particular kind of a thought. Now, and in that ways, what happens is when you're shifting your mind to gratitude, you're basically shifting it mostly away from complaining and unpleasantness and things like that. Now, as I said, if you believe in the concept of manifestation, the more unpleasantness that you have in your own internal headspace, the more unpleasantness you're going to manifest in your life. Now, gratitude does not just help you manifest better things in your life, it also avoids you the problem of manifesting more shit in your life, or more unpleasant things in your life, is how I would put it. So that's another amazing benefit that gratitude can give for you. Now, the next thing, which is also like really important to consider when you're thinking on the subject of gratitude, which is that without gratitude, you will inevitably fall into a complaining state of mind, because there are different states of mind. Well, I would say silence is also a state of mind, but it is much harder for people to reach. right? Like meditative states where the mind is not generating any kind of a thought, right? Now, in the interim, like when we are on our journey towards, like, say, having a calm, pleasant, quiet state of mind, when we are in a state where the mind is anyways active, like I woke up in the morning and then thoughts just start flooding into my consciousness. Now, in that state, what we notice is that if we do not have an attitude of gratitude, and you can do this exercise for yourself, like, if you just pay attention to the kind of thoughts that your mind is generating, and to do this, like what I would recommend is, like, you can cultivate the habit of not looking at you as yourself, right? Like, don't get so caught up in your own reality, like just maintain a slight distance and develop this capacity to look at your thoughts from a slightly detached vantage point. Like don't be so immersed in yourself, like, don't think that, okay, every thought that I'm having is me. Just create some distance and look at the quality of your thoughts, right? Once you do that, you will sort of observe that in the absence of gratitude, very quickly, it's like your mind starts bringing up all kinds
your
of
video.
Okay, are you able to hear
Your
me?
video. Hello. Your video was paused.
Okay, but what about my audio? Are you guys able to hear me?
I can hear you. It's
Okay,
just
I mean, as long as you're able to hear me, that's fine, because yeah, that's the main part.
okay. I think you came back. I think you came back. Okay.
All right, cool. So sweet. So without gratitude, what happens is that inevitably our mind will start bringing up things that we can complain about, things that we do not like, and start focusing on more unpleasant things in life. So these are some of the benefits that gratitude can do for us. So the next thing is, also what happens is, as we inculcate the habit and attitude of gratitude, our mind starts to constantly scan our reality and start observing and picking up what is best, what is the highest in our reality. And as a result, as we tend to focus on the best, we tend to become the best that we can possibly be. And we also tend to manifest and receive the highest sort of things in our life. Now, coming to the proper use of gratitude, like I would say, what we are aiming for is to develop an attitude of gratitude. By that, what I mean is that what we ultimately want is not to be in a state where we're just going to spend a few minutes of every day doing some gratitude exercises. Not that, okay, 10 minutes in a day, I'm going to do some gratitude journaling and stuff. And then for the rest of the day, I'm just going to start nagging and complaining, be like, Bharat, how the fuck did he do this? It's like, or, it's like, this girl, how the fuck did she say that to me? Like, and then going off into all those spaces, that's not the ideal and best end result. The ideal and best end result for us is to develop an attitude of gratitude. By that, what I mean is, irrespective of whatever is happening in life, you might be sitting in a bus or driving your car, taking a shower, brushing your teeth, or going for a walk, whatever you're doing. Like, when there is a fundamental shift in our nature of being itself, which is that constantly the mind just brings up things that we can be grateful for, that is when we have actually finally developed an attitude of gratitude, and that is what we ultimately want to get to, right? Now, the next thing that I want to talk about on the topic of the proper use of gratitude is, and this is a really interesting and important point, and for probably some of you, this might be the first time to consider this, which is, have gratitude for all things. Now, what does that mean, to have gratitude for all things? Like, do not rage against like corrupt politicians or bureaucrats, or like, systems which are, taking away your freedom or making you feel, oppressing you and all of those things. Like, what we need to understand is that all the systems that we have today, like even if we think that they're like horrible or bad or whatever, these are functions of evolution. Like the planet itself is conscious and alive. That's a different topic. We're not going to go into that right now. But like over millions of years, like everything has been evolving. Our species itself is evolving. Our social structures are evolving, and everything is progressing, right? And what we need to understand is that even the systems that we dislike are not here by accident. What we need to understand is that uh, the universe is alive, it is conscious, and it is immensely intelligent. And what it is doing is it is organizing systems to constantly move us and propel us forward. Now, once we understand that, it is good to have gratitude for all things. That is, that even if there are some corrupt politicians or corrupt bureaucrats or whatever, they are also here to basically advance life. And we can have gratitude for them as well. And the way we can think about it is that if you look at someone and if you feel annoyed or angry or whatever, we can switch that and realize that, okay, the universe has put you in a certain position. The universe is not dumb. I have faith in the universe and I respect that. And for whatever reason, you are in that position right now. And what you are doing is a plan of the universe to advance life, basically. And in that ways, we can have gratitude for all things in life. All right. Now, as I was mentioning in the previous section, which is the opposite of gratitude is actually dissatisfaction or complaining. And once you realize that, what you can do is over time, like simply more and more as you're aware of your thoughts, the quality of your mind, what are the nature of thoughts which are being brought up in your mind, what you realize for yourself is that your mind is either complaining or dissatisfied about things, or the opposite is gratitude, right? And when you observe, now that we're having this conversation, at least for this 1 week, right, that as your mind takes you to spaces which are unpleasant or spaces where you feel dissatisfied or ungrateful or angry or like jealous or possessive or any of those kind of things, what we can do is like we can realize that all of these states of being are deeply counterproductive. And they're counterproductive essentially in two ways. I'm sure there are more ways. First is that they instantaneously diminish the quality of your here and now experience of reality. That's one, right? The second is that they also degrade the quality of what you're going to attract to yourself in life, right? And of course, to save ourselves from that predicament, we're going to use gratitude to switch that in the moment we notice it, right? And it's a game that you can play with yourself. Of course, I'm sure we all get lost in our thoughts from time to time, and we forget about everything and then just get caught up and get carried away in this torrent of thoughts that we're having. But as soon as you're able to identify that, oh, zoop, there, I got lost again, and this is what my mind is doing, what we do is we bring ourselves back, observe what we are doing or what our mind is doing, and flip it 180 degrees, which is you saw like unpleasantness, you switch it to gratitude. And the gratitude could be about anything, right? But the key over here is that I want you to guys to feel it, right? What you can genuinely feel grateful for, right? And it doesn't matter whether it's a big thing or a small thing. Our essential objective over here is to develop an attitude of gratitude. I mean, you can feel grateful for really tiny things or really large things. I mean, you can feel grateful for having a toothbrush. You can feel grateful for having a car or having access to transport, or you can feel grateful that there is a road, or you can feel grateful for having trees, and you can feel grateful for anything, like your dog or your friends, or like, it doesn't matter. But the main thing is the feeling that it generates inside of you. That is the most important part. It's also not about gratitude for like big things or small things. Whatever in any given moment you're able to feel grateful for, feel it. give acknowledgement to it, and then you can move to the next thing. All right. Now, coming to the 1 week challenge itself, the idea that I have for all of you, thank you so much. And first of all, I'm really grateful that all of you have joined me. Right. Like I was perfectly happy doing this, even for like, I thought in my mind, even if one person comes, I'm going to do it. And anyways, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to do it for myself anyways. Right. So I'm really grateful that all of you have joined me. Thank you so much. Makes me really happy. So now coming to the challenge itself, for this 1 week, at least, since it's a challenge, what I want you to do is spend as much of your time as you possibly can living in gratitude, right? So it's not about spending, 20 minutes in a day, 10 minutes in a day, or, doing 2 gratitude exercises, morning and evening. That's not the idea. This is not allopathic medicine that we eat 2 tablets twice a day. The idea is to live in gratitude as much as you possibly can. So we're just going to try and put in a bit of extra energy this week to be aware of what are the kind of thoughts that I'm having in my head. As soon as I notice that I'm having unpleasant or, dissatisfaction or any kind of not really good thought in my head, I'm going to try and switch it to something that I can be grateful for. And also, of course, you can take the liberty where you can go ahead and if you're feeling grateful towards any other human beings, you can feel it in your own mind, that is for sure. But you can also express it, right? Like you had a thought, you can just quickly write a message and then send it off to your friend that, hey, I'm so grateful to have you in my life. You make my life better. Thank you so much. I love you. It's like, just send a quick message, it's like, I'm sure they will feel good too. You will feel good too. And it's a nice thing to do. Right. So yeah. So first part of this challenge is spend as much time of this week as you possibly can living in gratitude. Now, the next thing, which is to help motivate all of our other friends and to share our mind with everyone else, because it's a beautiful thing to let other people, kind of peek inside our mind and see what's going on. Every day on one of the groups that you're a part of, like preferably the Lazy Man's University group, if you're there, like you can share 3 things that you're grateful for, right? So every day, whenever you feel like it, doesn't matter, the time doesn't really matter, whether it's morning, evening, afternoon, whenever you just have this thought, just share 3 things that you're grateful for. I mean, you can do it on the Lazy Man's University group. If you're not a part of that, I can add you to it. Now, the next optional thing, I mean, you don't have to do this. You can do it if you want to. I'm sure some of you probably already doing this. You can start maintaining a gratitude journal, right? Or alternatively, if you don't want to start a gratitude journal, if you already have a journal or a diary or something of that sort, you can create a separate section for gratitude where you can kind of just keep putting down thoughts, all the kind of things that you're grateful for, right? And what I would suggest is be like a child, enjoy your reality. Don't take things too seriously. Even when it comes to the gratitude part, let your gratitude flow towards all things, the little things, big things, like whatever, just have fun. Like that's also like a really important part of this, right? Mainly that's about it for the challenge for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Any questions that you have, I'm open to taking them, or just to hear your thoughts on things as well. Yes.